Top 10 funniest recurring Family Guy characters.
If you are brand new to our channel, we invite you to take a moment to subscribe. Just click on the lit red button as well as the gray bell. Why the bell? Well, it will let you know every time we post a new video.
10.
10. Horace. Horace is the local bartender at the Drunken Clam who has had to deal with the antics of Peter, Cleveland, Quagmire, and Joe for a long time. He was shot during the episode, where the Leafers show up from New York, got knocked out in another episode, while fixing the television and nearly died in a fire, what was accidentally started by God. Horace's luck wasn't too good to say the least, and he would ultimately die when he got hit with a baseball which forced the guys to find a way to save the bar. Horace did his best to keep the guys out of trouble while at the Clam, and was a character that fans
9.
9. Consuela. Consuela is the maid who wouldn't go away. She is the head of the maids union, and is best known for being the Griffin's maid who wouldn't go home when it was raining. She has made many more appearances on the show, and has been Superman's maid along with James Woods' housemaid over the years. She always wants more lemon pledge, and speaks broken English which makes her hard to understand at times. She is one of the few characters who originally was in a cutaway who ended up getting involved in the show on a more regular basis. If there is ever a time where a maid is needed on the show, Consuela will always be there.
8.
8. Tom Tucker. The anchorman for Quahog 5 News has had many adventures over the years, and seems to show up on the program every single week. He spent many of his early years on the desk with Diane Simmons, before she was killed, and was replaced by Joyce Kinney. Tucker has disclosed in the past that his mustache is fake, and had to return it once when he was fired. He nearly turned into Peter's dad during one episode, and has made the rounds doing everything from moderating debates to wanting a golden mustache comb for Christmas. Tucker is always there at the desk, though whenever the Griffins turn on the TV.
7.
7. Connie D'Amico. Everyone's favorite student at Quahog High, D'Amico has spent every moment she has badgering Meg. She is the head of the cheerleading squad, and would be described as someone who is mean, and gets everything she wants. She is also the only character to have dated all 3 of the male members of the Griffin family, which makes things awkward, especially when she did Stewie. Peter has an unhealthy obsession with Connie, and ends up lying on top of her when she gets knocked out during one show. D'Amico will never change her attitude and never should, as watching her irritate Meg turns into a ritual.
6.
6. James Woods. One of the few characters on the show to have his real name, Woods has been taking every chance he can to get back at Peter. He stole Peter's wallet, and spends thousands of dollars, claiming to be Peter Griffin, which in turn makes Peter say he is James Woods to ruin his career. The high school in Quahog is named after him as well, and he is easily caught by using Reese's Pieces as bait. An entire episode revolves around Woods apologizing to everyone he has been mean to, but it turns into a murder mystery with Diane Simmons. Woods hasn't appeared much in recent years, but hopefully he'll be.
5.
5. Adam West. West is the mayor of Quahog and plays a role that is perfect for his personality. He has spent much of his time as mayor wasting the taxpayers' money on things like a statue of the cereal mask at Diggum. He has tried to outlaw same-sex marriage, and has sent his entire police force to Colombia trying to find a fictional character in the past. He believes someone is stealing all his light bright pieces and all the water. West revealed in one episode that he is 95% helium. There is no doubt that the show wouldn't be the same without West in it. The mayor is always laughing and screaming what? Fans can look for more of Mayor West, as long as Family Guy is around.
4.
4. Dr. Hartman. Elmer Hartman is the family doctor who never seems to be able to do anything the way it should be done. He has a way of using humor instead of telling someone what is actually wrong with them. He gave a prostate exam to Peter once which was mistaken for rape, and Hartman lost his medical license. He would soon get it back, but it is his incompetence that makes every Hartman appearance worth seeing. It has been stated that Hartman is the worst doctor in the hospital as well, and being an alcoholic, which isn't a great combination. The next time one of the Griffins gets sick or hurt, Hartman will be right there to give misleading advice.
3.
3. Bruce. The man with 20 jobs would be Bruce. He has worked as a CPR teacher, a medium, a priest, a therapist, a lawyer, a masseuse, a referee, a laser tag operator, a horror shop clerk and a bowling alley counterman. Is there nothing that he can't do? Bruce has been hinted at as a homosexual over the years, but that hasn't been proven. He has a pet rabbit named Steven. Bruce is the kind of character who may not show up for 2 or 3 weeks, but suddenly is back doing a completely different job than he was in the past. There will be more appearances coming from this mustached man who seems to be able to do everything.
2.
2. Carter Pewterschmidt. The wealthy father of Lois owns U.S. Steel and Pewterschmidt Industries. He is viewed as a billionaire who doesn't like most things. He hates Peter with a passion, and offered him $1 million not to marry Lois. He has ended up broke several times, having lost money in the timber industry. He also lost a lawsuit which forced him to live with the Griffins without much success. It is known that Pewterschmidt loves the show medium as well. He has considered retirement, but became bored and wanted to go back to work. The voices of Pewterschmidt and Dr. Hartman are very similar, which makes a conversation between the two most interesting.
1.
1. Mr. Herbert. There are few characters that get as much of a reaction than John Herbert, former Air Force pilot and known lover of Chris. There are many ways that Mr. Herbert can be described. He could be looked at as a pedophile for the ways he is always trying to attract Chris, but walks the line of just being an old man who doesn't know any better. He is always waiting for the paperboy to deliver his newspaper and attempts to lure him into the house with some offer like a cupcake and a glass of wine. Chris obviously doesn't feel like everyone else about Herbert, and considers him to be a friend. Mr. Herbert though is the one character that always makes everyone cringe when he comes on screen, in a good way.
Yeah.